This is the Troll Patrol, live with Justin FREAKIN.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't even know why I'm doing this. I probably should have took a nap. Welcome to the Troll Patrol Live Special Report. We are awaiting a joint press conference between U.S. President Joe Biden and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. News conference is scheduled for 4:15, which is about in 8 minutes. So it gives me a little bit of time to banter a bit, let the snow run out, this music run out. I mean, it's not like I can throw it over to the Washington Post and let them do their, analysis or anything, because it's just a static shot of the White House right now. Looks pretty, though, with a wreath on it. It's like a nice day in the District of Columbia. I am not high enough for this shit. Will I be back tonight? I started putting together a show, but damn. Something is wrong with Justin right now, and I don't know what it is. Not cool. Taking every ounce of strength that I have to do my work, to do this show. But I suffer through. How much I care about my freaking followers. This isn't going to be as fun as the January 6th committee hearing that we did earlier in the week. By no means. Not exactly sure what to expect for this. A lot of dick sucking. Apparently Zelenskyy is going to be thanking the United States for all that money we've been sending over there. Being ready to hit him with like another 50 billion. So, coming over here to grease our shaft so public sentiment doesn't turn against Ukraine. That's possibly the motive behind this press conference. I saw earlier today someone post the video of when Zelenskyy met with Trump in 2018, and Trump said, I hope you can get together with Putin and work things out. And Zelenskyy's face just tells the entire story. Here is the live shot of the White House. We await the Post to take the press conference. Perhaps I should switch over to the White House feed. Sometimes, like PBS, they'll come on late or something. Live schedule. No, there it is. The White House YouTube has the press conference scheduled for 4:30. So perhaps Washington Post is actually going to come on at 4:15 and give us some analysis. The 4:15 is the scheduled time. White House says 4:30. Justin hoping they hurry up and get this over with so you can take a nap. We will take you to coverage of this joint press conference between U.S. President Joe Biden, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy momentarily. Until then, get a little more high. I'm gonna get a little more high. Sounds like the course of action. Carpe, good afternoon. I guess I could take this time to run down the schedule the rest of the week. our big announcement last night about our special guest co-host for this Friday's edition of the Friday Night Freak Show. Krampus, special guest co-host. This Friday's Friday Night Freak Show, 10 p.m. Eastern on Friday night. It is, you accidentally hit Photoshop. It is, I forgot what I was going to say. Just completely off my game now. Friday night, 10 p.m. Eastern. Christmas Eve, the Friday Night Freak Show. Krampus as special guest co-host. Saturday night, we're going to do a special Troll Patrol on Saturday night. I don't usually stream on Saturdays. We'll be keeping an eye on NORAD, who will be tracking Santa. Joe Biden probably going to make some calls to the children's earlier in the day. We'll show you some highlights of that sort of thing. This is what we're going to cover on Saturday night. Troll Patrol. Then Sunday night, no Troll Patrol. It's Christmas Day. We're just going to come on and we're going to watch classic TV specials. Classic Christmas TV specials. We'll listen to some Christmas music. It'll be a fun time for all. Happy Hanukkah to all you Jewish people out there. I think this is the 4th day. On the 4th day of Hanukkah. We had to blast Santa. That would be awesome. We will watch the Red Sleigh Down episode of South Park, where the Iraqis do shoot down Santa. Had to enlist Jesus to go and save the day. I got all the classic shit. I got like a Bewitched Christmas special, Captain and Tennille with special guest Don Knotts Christmas special. I've never watched that one. Tried to watch it with Sparkles last year, and she told me that Don Knotts scared her. So because I was so proud, I was like, I found this Captain and Tennille Christmas special. Let's watch it. I was excited for it. She, not so much. Definitely going to break out the Captain and Tennille Christmas special. Perhaps watch Bart get busted trying to steal from the Try and Save. That's the one where he replaces the answer machine tape with the hello mudda, hello fada. And then Homer's like, is Bart at Camp Granada? What joint session? I don't usually smoke joints, Warlord. Oh, are you he's addressing Congress tonight. That's what you're talking about. I'm sorry. No, I'm probably gonna take a nap. Why are you so I don't know, what time's he addressing Congress? If it's tonight during the stream, maybe we'll take it. All right, so here's Washington Post coverage.
Come to trust. To get the facts.
I don't have to keep vamping.
Meet the challenges of today head on.
Is it 7:30?
News
Goddamn.
that matters most with a special offer by visiting WashingtonPost.com/watch.
Do not subscribe to the Washington Post, who just laid off a bunch of their workers.
Winning coverage, anytime, any place.
We stand with workers around here. We need to cover the multiple strikes going on in the UK right now, and the possible strike by healthcare workers. I was listening to James O'Brien this morning. He was on one.
The Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy is at the White House meeting with President Biden at the
Have I been saying it wrong? Is it Volodymyr?
White House press corps. And tonight, President Zelenskyy will address a joint meeting of Congress, a historic series of events set against the backdrop of Russia's war with Ukraine. Welcome to this special report from the Washington Post. I'm Libby Casey.
I thought my thumbnail was pretty cool.
First trip out of Ukraine.
Biden looking all stupid, Zelenskyy looking serious, and I got Putin ghostly in the background.
The United States and its leaders and its people for aid and to lobby for continued support. With me now.
Yeah, that's what it is.
James, let's talk about why they're having these.
I knew it. I knew it.
Now, and why did President Zelenskyy choose the United States as his first place to come?
The United States has been the biggest backer by far of Ukraine during this now 300-day war. This week, Congress is about to vote on a $44.9 billion aid package.
So allow me to tell you exactly what you will hear from.
Total U.S. support.
Need to pause
Ukraine
that.
over
Wanted to mute it. This is what you're going to hear tonight
I can't do this.
from Zelenskyy.
Give me money. Money me. Money now. Me a money needing a lot now.
That was Charlie's line. Yeah.
So that is what you can expect to hear from Zelenskyy tonight in front of Congress.
Where President Biden and President Zelenskyy will be talking to the press corps shortly. We expect that to be in about 10-15 minutes.
I mean, I guess you can take shots if you like. I'm going to take bong rips
Congress is about to change.
because
And
I ain't
Nancy
high
Pelosi
enough for
House,
this shit.
in January, really just like 2 weeks' time. So how does that play into the significance?
Man, look at this virtue signaler over here with his
now.
Ukrainian
I really
flag
think
behind the
it's the end of year.
podium.
As far as the Biden White House is concerned,
Core, good afternoon. Bye. Why are you leaving me, Warlord? You're the reason why I did
They
this.
put the Inflation Reduction Act ahead of it. But coming into
We are awaiting Volodymyr Zelenskyy and Joe Biden joint press conference from the White House.
President Biden's line that he says often is that he will support Ukraine as long as it takes whatever.
Zelenskyy will be speaking in front of a
And so
joint
there's
session of
tension,
Congress
and
later
there's
tonight.
tension within the GOP. Senate Republicans tend to be much more
Exactly.
of the war effort.
The tag
Mitch
team
McConnell
champions will
today
be.
saying that
The
this is
Usos are
a
not there,
war
Warlord.
for the U.S. to support, that it's also in our cold, clear national interests. But
The bloodline will not be making an
House
appearance
Republicans
at
are
this
people
press
like Marjorie
conference,
Taylor Greene
unfortunately.
saying the United States should be focused on our own people and not the Ukrainians. So this is going to come to a head. That's why, frankly, in this omnibus, they've put so much money.
He said ahead.
It's $44.9 billion.
You live in
because they don't
sexual
think that it's
anarchy?
necessarily going to be automatic. That in 3 or 4 months they'll be able to get more money.
I want to talk more about just what
So yeah, Holman summed it up right there. This is what you can expect to hear from this press conference with Zelenskyy.
I can't do
Just get to the
this.
money part, all right? Just get the money part done.
Give me money. Money me. Money now. Me a money needing a lot now.
So there's your preview for what you will hear from Zelenskyy here in just a few minutes.
the press and really PR part of this.
Yeah, I think a lot of this is about sending a signal both to Ukraine, but also to America's allies in Europe and to Americans here at home about the United States' continued commitment to supporting Ukraine. As you and James were just talking about, there's some concern about Republican leadership in the House not being as eager to continue to support.
So once again, I've got mixed feelings about U.S. and Ukraine. Obviously, Ukraine has the right to defend themselves. They have a right to exist as a country. The whole reason the U.S. considers it in our strategic interest to align with Ukraine is because of the state of Georgia, which is in a precarious position, which could fall easily to Russia.
President of the U.S. wants to make a clear statement.
And the state of Ukraine, that is where about 25% of the world's oil and gas refining capacity lies. We have a pipeline that goes through the country of Georgia from the Caspian Sea. So without the nation of Georgia and the nation of Ukraine, we would have no way to extract oil and natural gas from the Caspian Sea. That is the reason why we have been supplying billions to Ukraine. I'm not making a value judgment of whether that is right or wrong. Simply stating the facts of the matter. Now, issue I have with the U.S. providing so much money to factions in Ukraine is that it has never worked out well for the U.S. in the history of our country when we arm rebel factions. If you want another 9/11, this is how you get a 9/11. We did the same thing in a proxy war with Russia in the 80s in Afghanistan, and we ended up with Al-Qaeda. So, dedicated to the brave freedom fighters of the Mujahideen.
Tyler, what should we be listening for as the press corps has a chance to ask questions?
So I don't know. This is a tough situation.
more does Zelenskyy and the Ukrainians want from the U.S.?
Without U.S. support,
The road ahead look like in terms of any sort of
could Ukraine defend itself?
President Biden's been very clear.
Would it have already fallen?
Ukraine being actively involved in those conversations, but pressure is going to continue to rise.
Would it have
sort of path forward, some sort of end?
ended up becoming some sort of guerrilla warfare tactic where Russia just,
To pursue
same thing that happened in Afghanistan, they just keep fighting year after year,
want to stay
making no progress.
at this moment. So I think we're listening for what the president, what both presidents have discussed with their aides.
So,
How to find
tough situation. I had to walk back my statements. Originally, I didn't think that
So much. You know, James, these press conferences, though, are a chance for
I didn't think that Russia was going to attack Ukraine when the State Department was giving its warnings repeatedly. I was like, yeah, U.S. State Department, sure.
This is going to be
And then I had to eat my words. I was wrong on that one, so
try to focus on the areas where there are
fair enough.
sort of the U.S. is giving you a lot of support. What more do you need? And
But now they are saber rattling about nuclear weapons, and we're going to talk about that later tonight on the main
is
show.
criticizing Republicans for the reasons we were just talking about a minute ago, which is that
Accusations
they're
that
gonna depend
Russia
on
is going to
Republican
partner with
support. So
Belarus
They don't want this to become some kind of
to launch a nuclear attack.
session, and so there is going to be some diversion of interest there between the White House and Zelenskyy.
The United States is sending Ukraine a Patriot surface-to-air missile system. Let's talk about what.
I don't know about diversion of interest.
And
The
why now?
people
So the
that
Patriot missile
are
became very famous in the Middle
in
East.
Biden's ear about this clearly are defense contractors that are making bukus of money off of this.
The kinds of systems that are striking critical infrastructure in
That's
places
about
like
the only thing the U.S. even
apartment
makes
buildings, that kind of
anymore
thing.
is
It's Iranian
bombs and
made
missile
drones.
systems and
these
shit.
Patriot missile systems don't really work to hit those, but they do hit planes and short-range ballistic missiles and aircraft that are delivering kind of traditional large-scale weapons. It also takes some time. I think that one of the reasons there's been hesitancy.
We should be about 5 minutes away from the press conference,
Ukrainian
the scheduled
troops are going to
time.
be taught how to use these complicated systems by American.
We've done
forces
several of
in a
these press
third country
conferences during the
outside
Biden
of Ukraine,
administration,
the United
and
States, probably Poland.
about half the time Biden is right on time, about half the time
So
he's
they're
running
already
late. So who
getting
knows?
Lots of air defense systems, but this is sort of the biggest and most expensive.
Let's bring in Philip Bump, national correspondent. Philip, you write that this meeting has been a long time in coming.
Yeah, so this isn't the first time Zelenskyy and Biden have met at the White House. They met last September as well. But this meeting, this particular Zelenskyy sitting down with Biden, discussing Ukrainian security and having the United
It wasn't Zelenskyy on The View when he did that tour?
support. That's what
Squid,
Zelenskyy
good
did
afternoon.
his entire presidency. He was elected in April 2019. Very infamously, he tried to get Donald Trump to show that level.
Forrester, yeah, I already pointed out
In favor of trying to get Zelenskyy to announce an
what you can expect to hear from the press conference here.
Just get to the money part, all right? Just get the money part done.
Give me money. Money me. Money now. Me a money needing a lot now.
That was Charlie's line.
So that's what you can expect to hear from Zelenskyy momentarily.
message, very clear and strong message to Russia in particular about the strength of the alliance between the two countries.
I do want to point out that
What are
Zelenskyy
you
was
watching for to come out of this meeting?
painted as a clown. He was a comedian. That's not the reason he was painted as a
This is
clown.
a public relations.
His administration was seen as a failure until
Zelenskyy is there.
the invasion from Russia.
Confront the Republicans, as James said.
Multiple corruption
They
scandals
say no, right? I mean, this
looked like they were going to bring his administration down. I don't think he wagged the dog in order to get Russia to do this.
You know, what they do is they put a face to it. They say, you know, please help us. You need to help this small child.
But it definitely has been good for Zelensky's approval ratings and his standing throughout the world.
Real. I need this help.
And that's another thing that I want to point out, that
Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's
many world leaders
do that when you're looking
have come to power through populist movements
in the face of a Russian onslaught.
times of crisis,
Certainly, Philip, Volodymyr Zelenskyy is
and
to the
started out
the
as
pride of Americans and the goal of Americans to want to be
encompassing the will of the people,
supporting
but
really the
then
underdog,
turning
potentially
totalitarian.
in Zelensky's mind, defeat Russia. Can you talk to us, Philip, about how Zelensky has to portray his plight to the American people?
I don't know what to expect from the. Which one of you fucks the other night when we got somebody from
America's responding to
Russia?
And I think
which, by the way, we've had a couple of different.
It's long been very clear. This is
people claiming to be from Russia come into the stream here lately,
which is something that I think resonated for a lot of Americans.
Somebody said they were from Russia in here and asked if we spoke Russian, and somebody replied to them, "No, only Ukrainian."
The level of support among Americans has waned a little bit.
I laughed.
Obviously, it's not affecting us directly in the same way that is Ukrainians by any stretch, but it is still something that Americans are invested in. Americans have sort of started to.
What is Russia going to win? I don't think there are any winners in this situation.
That this is still ongoing. That this is still a struggle. That it is not the case. Yes, they have gained ground against Russia, but it's not the case, for example, that they're on the verge of entirely booting Russia out of Ukraine, right? There's still a long way to go in this fight, and I think it's sort of a re-injection of energy to some extent as well.
I think Russia is in worse standing than it was before this invasion started.
The two presidents are meeting behind closed doors. We expect them to come to those podiums right there in the East Room and address the press corps in just a little while.
Yes, arms manufacturers are going to win. They always win.
President Biden with a gift from one of his soldiers. This was at that press spray when the media was able to be in the room and watch them in their first moments together there. Let's watch.
I want to give you something. One guy, he's really real hero, real captain, and he asked me.
Which battalion was he the captain of?
His award. And he asked me to pass his award to President Biden. You will understand. He is the captain of Heimer's battery. Yes, he's very brave, and he said, give it to very brave president. And I want to give you that is the cross for military merit. That is one.
Oh, God love you.
Yes, that is from him.
President Biden accepting that award. James, President Biden went on to say, undeserved, but very much appreciated. Very meaningful, but also part of this effort by Zelensky to get.
I was wondering the same thing, Core. I was like, I'm not one of those people that is all conspiratorial about like Nazis everywhere in Ukraine.
He's the master at this.
However,
give all those speeches to various capitals, including the Zoom speech to the Congress in the spring, shortly after the invasion. Remember his background. He was an actor. Who had a
fair enough, Core, fair enough.
Teacher who suddenly became the president of Ukraine and kind of discovers this as he's going along. He has this olive drab sort of wartime uniform. He's really emerged.
I try to be fair about everything.
Was elected president, promising to end.
I don't think there's any more Nazis in Ukraine than there are in the U.S. Matter of fact, I think there might be a lot more in the U.S.
And so he really this sort of performative aspect of.
It is 4:30 right now, so we should be seeing Biden, Zelensky walk out any minute now.
And he's really good at symbols, and Joe Biden loves these kinds of symbols. His son, Beau, was in the military, also is part of that exchange. Our president, Joe Biden, said that he wanted to get in touch with the soldier who had given him the medal so that
from his nap. Now, come on.
Come on, man. Basically with the presidential seal, and to send him a thank you note. That's the kind of thing that Biden.
Like you say that as if it's like a put down.
Are very meaningful.
I'm gonna take a nap right after this.
The president who has staked so much of his term on giving support to the Ukrainians.
I don't know what is wrong with Justin, but he barely made it through the stream last night, and just as soon as the stream was over, passed out.
Fight against Russia, its invader, is so important to this White House.
Well, I think there are a few reasons. The first is that
I hadn't even eaten or anything, just passed the fuck out.
Was inaugurated in 2021.
Got up at like 3 o'clock in the morning and went and had dinner.
Between democracy and autocracy, right? There are echoes in that in domestic politics, which is certainly one of the reasons that he had emphasized it. But fundamentally, Joe Biden sees this moment, this.
Why are you putting down a nap now?
He's under threat, obviously with justification. That Russia then acted aggressively aggressively toward Ukraine.
Naps are amazing. I can't believe I was so opposed to naps when I was a child.
But that Russia, an autocracy, was acting in that way toward this burgeoning democracy, I think really presented Biden with a way of
Squid, I need to have you on as a special guest co-host on the Freak Show here
I think it's
before
sort of an
too
abstract
long.
reason that I think he's very invested in it. Then, of course, it's just that Russia is a long-time geopolitical.
It is a travesty. I haven't already had you on.
Extremely effective way for the United States.
Don't forget this week's special guest co-host, Krampus.
By virtue of having someone else do the fight. And I think that most military experts you talk to
Tune in for the Friday Night Freak Show.
The fact that it's been so successful, the United States has provided this aid to Ukraine, has vastly eroded Russia's both stockpile.
Forrester, I mean,
which is the sort of
the same could be said about Vladimir Putin.
2 years ago, much less at the outset of this conflict. And so there are a lot of reasons.
Both Putin and Biden have faced
this struggle makes one
rumors or alleged reports that they fell down and soiled themselves. Both of them.
Ending aid to Ukraine, watching Russia be more successful, becomes less palatable by the day.
Philip, we touched on this with James earlier, but I'd like to hear your.
We got like a hype man down here in the front.
Written about this.
Gonna announce Biden coming out.
House Republicans, especially those on the far right flank.
What does he think this is? A TPUSA event? Got Carrie Lake walking out on stage?
Very different decisions and agendas from Republicans in the Senate versus Republicans in the House. What message does this White House need to send to Republicans, and what message does Zelenskyy need to send to Republicans?
The thing with Biden, I don't think Biden is in cognitive decline.
At play here and what's at stake.
He's definitely lost a step, though. If you watch a interview from during the Obama administration, just go back to like 2014.
They don't hear a lot about it.
He was definitely a hell of a lot sharper.
Tangible, so that even people who are sort of skeptical about the spending are nonetheless willing to go along. Now,
so I do kind of wish that if we were going to have to face a Joe Biden presidency, I wish he had ran in 2016.
Defense budget, it's really fairly.
Honestly, if he had ran in 2016, he might have won.
What America spends on these things, which again is one of the reasons why military experts tend to be sort of awestruck at the success that's been had.
But he him-hawed around, as they say here in the South.
Obviously, some politics here, and that. Since the outset,
and by the time that
there's been some sympathy on the right,
he got around to actually making a decision.
With Donald Trump giving
a lot of people had already gone to work for Hillary Clinton. A lot of the people that he would have been able to pull from.
We've seen it more recently from people.
Put together a campaign team had already gone to work for Hillary Clinton.
Both disparaged.
So I think that's ultimately what dissuaded him from running.
Providing too much in aid to him. So there's also this sort of. When we talk about democracy versus autocracy, this is a spectrum.
Because it sure would have been a hell of a lot better to be, at the end of a Biden term at this point in time right now.
Russia itself, which it predisposes people.
And facing an open primary. I think that would be a much more desirable position for us as the United States.
Republicans are eager to do is to continue to keep that as much as possible on the fringe.
Once again, press conference was scheduled for 4:30. That was about 4 minutes ago.
James, it's so easy to paint issues.
So expecting the presidents.
Some of the anti-democratic
any second now.
Russia and Vladimir Putin have taken over the last years.
Yeah, it's really a story that dates back 20 years. Putin, when he came to office, was
Pete was in the 2020 election. I'm talking in 2016.
And the story really of the last dozen years.
I wish that if we were going to have a Biden presidency, that it had happened in 2016, that he had ran. I think he
is primarily
very well could have beaten Hillary Clinton.
He's locked up a series of his opponents, leaders of
it could have been opening the door if there had been a three-way race between a Biden, a Clinton, and Bernie. It could have opened the door to Bernie winning. Everything could have been a lot different had Biden actually ran in 2016.
Who's a Washington Post contributing columnist, has been locked up and given a multi-year sentence for
ifs and buts for candies and nuts. And
so
I'm not high enough for this.
Journalists have been murdered. Fighters for democracy have been murdered.
Exactly, and so it really, now they're conscripting hundreds of thousands of people to send them into the war, and they've really been struggling.
Joining the USA to Russia, really now.
It's really, in a lot of ways, become as totalitarian as it was during the Soviet era.
Yeah, that's funny.
Kind of one of the storylines of the last few months is that a lot of sort of modern Russians who were aligned with the West have just left. And Putin, frankly, has been kind of happy to have them go. a lot of the intelligentsia, a lot of his internal critics have gone because it's just not
I'm sure the Republicans are paying him well.
a critic of Vladimir Putin.
Let's bring in Mariana Sotomayor. She
Going over
came
Hunter
to
Biden's
Capitol
laptop,
Hill,
eh?
which she
They're back there
covers.
looking at pictures of that
let's
gigantic
talk about,
schlong.
what is unfolding today? In addition to this press conference that we're watching and this bilateral meeting these two leaders are having, the attention will turn to Capitol Hill later on tonight as President Zelenskyy addresses a joint meeting of Congress. What is the impression that you get from members of Congress about their unity or any sort of divisions about supporting Ukraine?
You know, there definitely.
I get accused of doing propaganda for the mainstream media all the time.
Overwhelming feeling of respect. Members do want to be here to see this very historic moment. They recognize that this is
repeating what the mainstream media
says about for potentially generations to come. You have Speaker Nancy Pelosi in one of probably her final acts as speaker, welcoming Zelenskyy.
We just passed the anniversary of the dude throwing the shoe at George W. Bush.
Personal moment for her because when her father served in the House,
awesome.
he was able
Good
to
times.
witness Winston Churchill when he came and asked Congress for help during World War II before the U.S. actually got involved. And this is that
Somebody
kind
gave
of
that dude a
moment.
shout out on
He does
Twitter,
that
and he
on
responded
that
back.
day
He's like,
where
"Thank you."
Congress is debating whether to continue helping.
I hope he's doing well. Yeah, shoe guy.
And helping their Democratic fight. We've seen a number of Republicans, especially here on the House side, which, by the way, I am above the gallery right now.
Also, the other night I went on this whole rant about
where Zelenskyy will
how we should have charged Nixon, how we should have charged Reagan, how we should have charged Bush.
And there's also some.
And like seriously, this happened before Sam Cedar went on his rant
Ukraine in this
on yesterday's show.
package that will likely pass.
That sounded a lot like my rant that I went on like Sunday or Monday.
Republicans have
And
been
I love when that shit happens. Like,
Congress
wow.
needs to do more
I made
oversight.
such a good
We're sending
point that, you know,
billions of
which is
dollars
so
over to
obvious.
Ukraine, Congresswoman.
It's not like I was making a point that wasn't, you
spoken
know,
on this
strikingly
front,
obvious to
that
anybody.
No money should be sent.
The fact
over
that
to
Sam Cedar
Ukraine,
said the
especially
exact same
at
thing is like, I
times
know
when
I'm
they
on the
want
right
to
track.
Domestic spending and helping, you know, fund the border.
So, like, there are things that you could, like, if you wanted to prosecute
It's
pretty much every
unclear
U.S. president, you could get him for some kind of war crime.
Put aside those concerns.
I mean, of all the egregious offenders in the history of this country, Jimmy Carter is the least
out of
egregious.
respect for him.
Mariana, are there ways that
That
President
doesn't mean
Zelenskyy
there's not
can
blood on
directly
his
appeal
hands
to
as
those
well.
Republicans?
It'll be interesting, and I think that's something that we will all be looking at. Is if he.
I'm down. I went on a rant one time that I was like, yes,
Who is he
if
addressing?
Republicans want to join with us
To the
and
audience?
hand over every former president and every former Secretary of State and Secretary of Defense, I'm down with it.
Turn to look
And
at
hey,
that.
I added Secretary of State in there. Like that takes Clinton. That gets us Kissinger out of here. Like I think it's a win-win. It's a win-win. It's a win-win-win-win.
I think some people are hoping that he can really firmly address Republicans who are skeptical, because it is going to be harder to fund or send any money, missiles, anything
Give 'em
that Congress
Biden,
may have
give 'em
to
Clinton,
approve once
give 'em John
the House
Kerry.
majority switches to the Republicans in January.
Donald Rumsfeld's dead, isn't he? I think I reported on
The
that.
power that Republicans versus Democrats
I don't
have in this
remember.
moment. And also some of the fascinating lines that they're dividing on in terms of national security and also
I just know that I'm pretty sure that the war against Ukraine is unpopular in
It's hard not
Russia.
to see this through a domestic lens.
It's hard to
obviously.
get an accurate reporting and an accurate assessment of what is going on in Russia.
American politics overlaps with this.
But it seems like the war is unpopular with
Volodymyr
the
Zelenskyy has a difficult
rank and
challenge.
file
particularly good
with your ham and eggers.
Not a partisanship, and I'm not sure how much he'll be able to do so.
I don't even know what that means.
yeah.
Bobby Heenan always used to say it. Your ham and eggers.
The United States' geopolitical interest is in supporting Ukraine.
Oh my God, died
Again,
suddenly.
to offset Russia, again to demonstrate support.
I know what that's a reference to. We've got our eyes on you.
That it makes sense, but that then requires spending a lot of money, which is something that tends to fall along.
Got some movement here, but I still don't think we're going to see the president.
The broader struggle between what government looks like.
I'm gonna go refill my drink real fast.
Since Donald Trump took power.
Oh, don't let me miss anything, guys.
This tension domestically.
Let me know what happens if I do miss anything.
Support for pure democracy and support for an autocratic system of government. And I'm not, just suggesting that there's broad autocratic support, support for an autocracy in the United States on the right. There certainly is more sympathy for people like Vladimir Putin, as we've seen reflected in polling. We've seen Russians broadly in the United States. Their support has declined more rapidly for continuing this to aid Ukraine in this fight, which is sort of astonishing when you consider where the two parties were 40 years ago, when it was the case that that the Republican Party of Ronald Reagan was fervent in trying to stand up to the aggression of the Soviet Union, which of course is not the same as Russia, and there's a lot of other things that have changed, but still reflects a shift. It reflects a shift in how people view different forms of governance that then gets sort of modeled and reflected in the way that Americans and American politicians interact with one another, and who they support and what they support. And so there are all these ways in which domestic politics infects this broader geopolitical issue, which on paper seems like it would be a fairly straightforward one for the United States to engage in.
Top members of President Biden's cabinet entering. We also saw the Ukrainian ambassador come in. James, we do expect President Biden to talk about and tout what Ukraine is expected to get in aid.
Yeah, President Biden is going to announce another $1.85 billion more today. And it's the Patriot air missile system we talked about, but it's also 500 to 155 millimeter artillery rounds, 37 MRAP vehicles, which are mine-resistant, basically mini tanks, other, hundreds of different armored vehicles, anti-.
You guys want to see a kitten?
2,700 grenade launchers, night vision body armor, 50,000 much smaller rockets, 100,000 rounds of anti-tank ammunition.
Are in there making crack with their granddaughter.
A lot of equipment.
Christmas crack.
The war effort. And again, this is against the backdrop of Congress poised to approve $44.9 billion more, bringing the total U.S. support to over $100 billion for the Ukrainian.
I needed to specify. I didn't want like CPS come up here on it.
Washington, this visit just announced.
It's candy.
It's really been months in the making in one way, James, but on the other hand,
cooking the cocaine
very quickly.
Yeah, last Wednesday, the two presidents talked on the phone and they talked about coming. An invitation was formally extended on Sunday and accepted on Monday. So this came together pretty quick. And it's also kind of amazing because President Zelenskyy has basically flown here directly from the front in the east, from Bakhmut, where he was meeting.
The White House, we went over the Christmas decorations the other night. We watched like the whole breakdown of
in the background,
all the different rooms.
Meeting with the troops.
I like the
quite a contrast.
I like the Christmas decoration.
The East Rim.
When he presented President Biden earlier.
MASH, we are waiting for a joint press conference between U.S. President Joe Biden and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy.
He's a wartime
guy I've apparently been saying wrong.
Based out of the capital of Ukraine.
Vladimir.
Almost every day. The Russians have been bombing electric stations.
Russia is Vladimir. Ukraine is Vladimir.
Or heat. The Russians are essentially using winter as a weapon, and so
welcome to everybody. I will once again preview what you can expect to hear from Zelenskyy during this press conference and then joint session later on tonight.
Just get the money part. Right? Just get the money part done. Give me money. Money me. Money now. Me a money needing a lot now.
There you go. That's what you can expect to hear. And here they come.
And now, President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, President Biden, speaking with the press. This is live coverage from the Washington Post.
Well, here we go.
President Zelenskyy, I'm honored to welcome you back to the White House. We spent an awful lot of time on the telephone as well as on video, but it's good to see you in person again. And we've been in close and frequent communication throughout this conflict from the very beginning, but it's particularly meaningful to talk with one another in person, look each other in the eye, because leadership through this terrible crisis has inspired the Ukrainian people as you have done, Mr. President, and the American people and the entire world. This visit to Washington, your first trip outside Ukraine since February, comes as President Putin is escalating his attacks, his brutal attacks, targeting critical infrastructure to make life as hard as possible for not only innocent Ukrainians, but children and young children, and everything from orphanages to schools. It's just
children and young children.
And we've, as we've heard into the...
Glad you qualified that, Joe.
It's important for the American people and for the world to hear directly from you, Mr. President, about Ukraine's fight and the need to continue to stand together through 2023. This visit also falls on the...
Have to do it all year next year, too?
Russia's brutal invasion of Ukraine. 300 days since Putin launched an unprovoked, unjustified, all-out assault on the free people of Ukraine. 300 days of Ukrainian people showing Russia and the world their steel backbone, their love of country, and their unbreakable determination, and I emphasize unbreakable determination, to choose their own path. To Ukrainian people, I say to them all, you have demonstrated, you have shown your strong stand against aggression in the face of the imperial appetites of autocrats who wrongfully believe they might be able to make might right, and they're not able to do it. Thus far, they've not stood alone. You know, and but you haven't stood alone. You have had significant help. We've never stand alone. You will never stand alone. When Ukraine's freedom was threatened, the American people,
I'm pretty sure his claim is bullshit, Core.
Americans before us did not hesitate.
But I could be wrong. I don't like foreign affairs is not my bailiwick.
Americans of every walk of life, Democrats and Republicans alike, had the resources and to rebound.
But I feel like I would know if that was true.
Way to provide unequivocal and unbending support for Ukraine. Because we understand in our bones.
I don't think Ukraine was shelling its own military.
It's part of something much bigger. The American people know that if we stand by in the face of such blatant attacks on liberty and democracy and the core principles of sovereignty and territorial integrity, the world would surely face worse consequences. And as I said, when Putin rolled his tanks into Ukraine in February, American people are prepared to have us stand up to bullies, stand up for freedom. That's who we are as Americans. And that's exactly what we've done. Even before the invasion began and Putin threatened Ukraine by building...
Those are the regions that they call like the Russian separatist regions. There are pockets of support for Russia.
They crossed into Ukraine. We provided a steady stream of defensive weapons, including air defense systems and artillery, ammunition, and so much more. And we've not...
Crimea is the disputed region that Russia annexed back in 2014.
Partners from around the world to stand strong with Ukraine and impose unprecedented, and I emphasize unprecedented, sanctions and export controls on Russia, making it harder for the Kremlin to wage this brutal war. More than 50 nations have committed nearly 2,000 tanks and other armored vehicles. More than 800...
Joe is definitely not as good as cold reading things as I am. But, I mean, who can be,
and
right?
more than 50 advanced multiple rocket launching systems, anti-ship and air defense systems, all to strengthen Ukraine. Together, we provided billions of dollars in direct budgetary support to make sure...
You know, I saw the stock market was up today. You want to take a look and see what Lockheed Martin's doing?
People, like healthcare, education, and emergency personnel. This includes another $2 billion.
Lockheed Martin up.
Direct budget support from the American people that the World Bank distributed earlier this week.
Boeing.
We provided humanitarian assistance.
Boeing stock.
The millions of Ukrainians who have been forced to flee
Boeing stock is
because
up.
of Putin's inhumane, brutal war.
Way up. Way up today.
Europe have opened their hearts and their homes to help Ukrainians in need. The United States has been proud to welcome more than 221,000 Ukrainians seeking refuge since March of 2020.
Halliburton stock up.
As part of Uniting for Ukraine, as part of our Uniting for Ukraine program. And today,
how'd I know that?
Is committing more than $374 million
Raytheon
humanitarian assistance for Ukraine. This will help provide food and cash.
So you can also buy stock in Ravana. Ravana's stock going up.
People,
I
as
highly
well as
recommend
access
it.
to health care.
Raytheon stock is up.
And help stay warm in the winter. To
Up 1.5 today.
2.5 million Ukrainians.
Kind of weird. Kind of weird. All these
have delivered a broad
all these companies are up today. General Dynamics Corporation
thus far.
up 3.25 points.
Has won the Battle of Kherson, has won the Battle of Kharkiv.
Northrop
Ukraine
Grumman
has defied Russia's expectations at every
up 9 points.
And President Zelensky, you have made it clear that he is open to pursuing, well, let me put it this way. He's not open, but you're open to pursuing peace. You're open to pursuing a just peace. We also know that Putin has no intention of stopping this cruel war. And the United States is committed to ensuring that the brave Ukrainian people can continue to defend their country against Russian aggressions as long as it takes. And I want to thank the members of Congress and for their broad bipartisan support.
Sounds like
look forward to
sounds like
signing
just
the
an open tab
omnibus bill
for all the
soon,
companies I just mentioned.
includes $45 billion in additional funding for Ukraine. I'll also sign into law the National Defense Authorization Act, which includes authorities to make it easier for the Department of Defense to procure critical munitions and defense materials for Ukraine and other key materials to strengthen our national security. Today, I'm announcing the next tranche.
So another reason for this visit is the Congress is getting ready to pass a budget.
$1 billion package of security assistance that includes both direct transfer
Coming up on a Friday deadline
that Ukraine needs, as well as contracts to supply ammunition Ukraine will need in the months ahead for its artillery, its tanks, and its rocket launchers. Critically, in addition to these new capabilities, like precision aerial munitions, the package will include a Patriot missile battery, which will train Ukrainian forces to operate as part of the ongoing effort to help bolster Ukraine's air defense. It's going to take some time to complete the necessary training, but the Patriot battery will be another critical asset.
I have 1,000 accounts.
Itself against Russian aggression. Altogether, today's new security assistance with humanitarian funding amounts to $2.2 billion in additional support.
Well, I mean, that's all the Pentagon and the Department of Defense has ever been is a money laundering
Russia's
operation.
doing. It is purposefully attacking Ukraine's critical infrastructure, destroying the systems that provide heat and light to the Ukrainian people during the coldest, darkest part of the year. Russia
Patriot battery, yeah.
as a weapon, freezing people, starving people, cutting them off from one another. It's the latest
Do you know what we do with balls around here? We kick them. We kick them in the balls.
He's kicking authority in the
Ukrainian
balls.
civilians, children, and their families. And the United States is working together with our allies and partners to provide critical equipment to help Ukraine make emergency repairs to their power transmission systems and strengthen the stability of Ukraine's grid in the face of.
I mean, I would assume they're gonna have to hand over some land, but also I don't think Russia.
Accountable, including efforts in Congress.
I don't think Russia just wants those separatist regions. I think they want the whole fucking country.
Let me close with this. Tonight is the fourth night of Hanukkah, a time when Jewish people around the world, President Zelenskyy and many of the
Put on your yarmulke.
timeless miracle, the small band of warriors fighting for their values and their freedom against a much larger foe, and how they endured and how they overcame. How the flame of faith, with only enough oil for one day, burned brightly for 8 days. The story of survival.
Oh, we're talking about
that reminds us that the coldest
talking about the menorah.
year, that light will always prevail over darkness, and hope drives away despair.
Jesus has nothing to do with
It is
Hanukkah.
unconquerable as long as there are good people willing to do what is right. This year has brought so much needless suffering and loss to the Ukrainian people. But I want you to know, President Zelenskyy, I want you to know that all the people of Ukraine to know as well, The American people have been with you every step of the way, and we will stay with you. We will stay with you for as long as it takes. What you're doing, what you've achieved.
Can we let the man speak, Joe? Let's hear from Zelenskyy now. Zelenskyy, stand-up comedian.
No doubt will keep the flame of
Zelenskyy was a stand-up comedian, so I'm going to respect that automatically.
And prevail over the
also an actor.
Thank you for being
before getting into politics. So let's hear what you. I'm sure you are a dynamic speaker, sir.
Thank you. Шановний пане президент.
Dear Mr. President, please put on the equipment. Once again, Mr. President, President Biden.
Yes, sir, we don't like you bossing our president around.
Ladies and gentlemen, I came here to the United States to forward the word of thanks to the people of America, people who do so much for Ukraine. I am thankful for all of this. This visit to the United States became really a historic one for our relations with the United States and the American leadership. In the last 30 days of this war, we have started a new phase of our interrelations with the United States. We became a real
for some reason, I thought he spoke English, and we were going to get like him talking.
The content, and I felt today during all of my meetings and during our talk.
Did I just imagine that? Did I imagine that I've seen him speaking English before?
President Biden for his candid support and what is very important, the understanding of Ukraine, and for the support of the international coalition to strengthen international law. I am grateful to President Biden for his personal efforts, his steps that...
I mean, he may speak it, just not speak it well enough to feel, comfortable giving a whole speech.
South. When all countries of the world
depressed Putin
take some position and are focusing on cooperation and mutual understanding, this is very useful for all of the countries, for Ukraine, for the United States. I want to thank the Congress for bipartisan, bicameral support, and I am looking forward to good meetings with the members of the Congress and their support. This is the
speaking in front of a joint session.
Here today,
just a couple of hours
with the Congress. The main issue during my today's talks is to strengthen Ukraine. Next year, our movement forward to fight for our freedom and independence. I have good news returning home. President Biden announced a new package of defense support, about $2 billion, and the strongest element of this package is the Patriot's battery systems, something that will strengthen our air defense significantly. This is a very important step to create a secure airspace for Ukraine, and that's the only way we would be able to deprive the terrorist country and their terror attack to strike our energy sector, our people, and our infrastructure. We had a very good negotiation.
This is your Patriot battery system.
Strategic steps which we discussed with President Biden and what we expect next year and for what we are preparing. This is very important for all Ukrainians, and I am hopeful. And once again, thank you, Mr. President, for $45 billion, because this is a big assistance, and I hope that the Congress will approve this financial assistance for our country. This is almost $45 billion. Thank you very much for the support. Every dollar of this investment for the United States is going to be a strengthening of global security. I know that the American leadership will be
Why do you keep talking about Jesus?
Play important role in global scope, and the United States will help us to defend our values and independence. And regardless of changes in the Congress, I believe that there will be bipartisan and bicameral support. And I know that everybody works for this. And of course, during all of
yes, sir, you are correct on that.
we discussed issues of standoff against terror of Russia, their destruction of our energy infrastructure. We need to survive this winter. We need to protect our people, and we need to be very specific in this area. This is a key humanitarian issue for us right now. This is the survival issue.
Yeah, I do have a story about how Ukrainians are actually buying up candles in preparation for this winter.
Terrorist country Russia. Russia needs to be held accountable for.
I say that we force Gwyneth Paltrow to hand over a bunch of her pussy candles.
World. And it is very important that we have the peace formula, and for that we offer very specific steps.
Good evening.
Help us to implement them. We propose global formula for peace summit. I'm thankful for our American counterparts that they understand how important it is to continue and
I would assume that when he's talking about the country of Russia, he's talking about the government,
integrity of the country and international rule of law. We will also need, as soon as our defense capabilities will be
now, British person needs to shut up about a terror state.
Discuss it in details right now. I believe you understand why, but I am very grateful to President Biden.
We can ask many
to all of these issues
island nations
to Ukraine,
who they see as a terrorist state. What's up, Sassy?
Questions from 4 different reporters, and I'm going to start with Alex of Yahoo News.
Thank you, Mr. President. In 2022,
they're taking questions,
a bipartisan international coalition to support Ukraine. How will you keep that coalition from fraying in 2023? And President Zelenskyy, welcome to Washington on this beautiful winter day. What is your message to the American people?
Well, answering your questions first, I'm not at all worried about holding the alliance.
Наше союзницьке партнерство з країнами Європейського Союзу і іншими країнами.
I assume this is simultaneous. All right. Okay. I've never seen NATO or the EU more united.
Ukraine still says that it was a Russian missile, but the international community did an investigation, and it was a defense missile launched by Ukraine.
Our European partners, all the more so. They fully understand it. This is about, we've never seen a major invasion of a European country since World War II. And they see no signs.
I don't think that's true.
Putin is going to do anything to change that unless we resist and we help the Ukrainians resist. We all know what's at stake, the very idea of sovereignty, the UN Charter. Putin thought he would weaken NATO. Instead, he strengthened NATO. I once said to him that we talk about the...
Well, he said European countries.
Europe and,
like Serbia's in Europe, isn't it?
Divided. And instead, what did he do?
Or is it in Asia? I'm horrible with geography.
Finland joining. So I don't see any reason to believe there'll be any lessening of support. And as we reach out to our NATO allies, our Secretary of Defense and our Secretary of State, we get continued support, not only there, but also from around the world, from Japan and many other countries as well. So I feel very good about the solidarity of support for Ukraine.
Thank you for your question. Thank you very much. You asked me what are the message to American people.
I knew he spoke English.
Tell you very simple things, which are very important for me, and I think so that we have the same values and the same understanding of the life. The sense.
Danny, good evening.
My message. I wish you peace. I think that is the main thing, and you understand it only when the war in your country, when somebody like these terrorists from Russia come to your houses. And I wish you to see your children alive and adult. And I wish you to see your children when they will go to universities.
Well, I guess technically Serbia wasn't an invasion. Now we're parsing words.
What I can wish you and of course, to be together with us jointly, because we really fight for our common victory against this tyranny. That is real life, and we will win. And I really want win together. Thanks so much. Not want, sorry, I'm sure.
You call on one of your people? Press person?
Yeah. Будь ласка. Winter.
Yeah, thank you. Dmitry Anopchenko, Ukrainian.
Did we ever even end the war on terror?
Zelenskyy, President Biden, I got a question to both of you, but firstly, as Ukrainian, and I mean it, I want to thank the United States for supporting my country. And, you know, my family is in Ukraine, and I definitely understand they will not be alive today if America will not support my country, both politically and militarily. So thank you for this. It's honest.
We will.
And as of my question, we enter a new phase of this war, and
we know for certain that this is an impartial journalist
to choose how the war could come to an end and what's next. Will it turn into a new counteroffensive or some kind of peace talks? So, Mr. Biden, Mr. Zelenskyy, could you share your vision? What's the fair way to end this war, and how do you understand this word's fair peace? Thank you.
My view.
Your guy.
I think we have. Come here. I see.
Although I like him very much already.
Ви розпочали це запитання.
You have started this question.
I'm sorry. Sometimes I switch on my native language. Ви почали з того, що ви
You have
сказали,
started by stating that your family is in Kiev and without the assistance of the United States. This is absolutely true. The U.S. leadership in this assistance is strong, and again, I would like to remind you that U.S. family will be.
Yeah, I do like my journalists to be adversarial.
Without the armed forces of Ukraine, which is very important. That concerns your questions per se. What would you like to hear? Just peace? I don't know. I don't know what just peace is. It's a very philosophical description. If there is a just war, I don't know.
There is no just war. I'll go ahead and answer that one.
Just peace is different. For me,
it's absolutely fluffy, Core.
No compromises as to the sovereignty, freedom, and
That's why I'm here to make jokey jokes for you.
My country, the payback for all the damages inflicted by Russian aggression. I'm sorry, I'm talking about children a lot today, but as a father, I would like to emphasize, you know, how
we mean man titties. That's what we mean by fluffy. Man titties.
Lost their sons and daughters on the front lines. So what is just...
I learned last week I can't show nipples.
Is nothing, and no compensations or reparations.
I just hit you with one.
Of no consequence. They live by revenge, Otje. I think this is a tremendous tragedy, and the longer the war lasts, the longer this aggression lasts, there will be more parents who live.
No man nipples on Twitch. No
vengeance or revenge, and I know a lot of people like that. So
I had to tell Krampus about that.
In the war that was imposed on us by these,
I learned in Krampus that like pretty much anything is
and I can't
is a go, except you can't show nipples and you can't do a racism.
Let me respond. I think we share the exact same vision, and that a free, independent, prosperous, and secure Ukraine is the vision. We both want this war to end. We both want it to end. And as I've said, it could end today if Putin had any dignity at all and did the right thing and just said, pulled out.
Well, apparently he fell down the other day and pooped himself, so I don't know if dignity is the right word to use in terms of
We talked about today
to
was we're going
Putin.
to continue to help Ukraine succeed on the battlefield. It can succeed in the battlefield with our help and the help of our European allies.
He have some kind of scar on top of his head?
When President Zelenskyy is ready,
They were my nipples, chainsaw.
he will be able to succeed as well because he will have won on the battlefield. And, you know, I don't think we should
I
underestimate
mean, those are the most successful
the
streams.
impact this war is having on Russia and the losses they're suffering. And you saw just, I think it was 2 days ago, Putin saying that.
Yeah, I'm not going to begrudge the hot tub streamers.
He thought he could break NATO. He thought he could break the West. He thought he could break the alliance. He thought he could be
I want to try to find me a
Russian speaking
content creator
wrong and wrong
doing some porn. Like, hey, we could be mutually beneficial for each other.
He cannot possibly win this war. That's when the time we have to put this president in a position to be able to decide how he wants the war to end. My turn, huh?
Please, yeah.
Phil Madley.
My OnlyFans is on sale this week.
CNN.
Thank you, Mr. President. Welcome, Mr. President. Mr. President, to start with you, your advisors often talk about how critically important you view face-to-face interaction. I'm wondering, after spending 2+ hours face-to-face with President Zelenskyy, what you learned or what you took from the meeting that perhaps you couldn't glean or learn in the phone calls or video conferences, and somewhat tied to that, was there any discussion related to?
Sorry, I watched a YouTube video about a goofy movie the other day.
Military action. Now that Patriots are being sent, a Patriot battery will be delivered.
Let me answer the
Which is half off?
The first part of your question. You know, I get kidded for saying that there's all
Just promo code MyPillow.
It's all about looking someone in the eye, and I mean it sincerely. I don't think there's any substitute for sitting down face to face with a friend or a foe and looking them in the eye. And that's exactly what's happening at this moment. We've done that more than once, and we're going to continue to do it. And the winter is setting in, and
We're gonna keep staring lovingly at each other.
increasingly going after civilian targets and women and children, orphanages. This guy is, well, but he's going to fail, and he's going to fail. He's already failed.
Oh, come on, Joe. Why didn't you finish that thought?
Occupy all of Ukraine. There's no way in which he's going to be accepted by the Ukrainian people. And so he's failed in the past, and it was very important for him and everyone else to see that President Zelenskyy and I are united, two countries together, to make sure he cannot succeed. And I think I may be mistaken, but I know.
Then he throwing out the gift sub. Thank you.
Leader,
Thank you.
What they say to me, their consistency, and looking me in the eye.
Making sure everyone's having a Merry Christmas.
His very soul is who he says he is. It's clear who he is. He's willing to give his life for his country, and all the folks that came with him today. And so I think it's important for him to know we are going to do everything in our power to see that he succeeds.
Thanks.
What was the second part of your question?
I just asked if you had discussed how the U.S. calculated the escalatory effect of sending a Patriot missile battery to Ukraine.
I did not discuss that at all with the president, but
Well, it seemed like that was one of the things that he was most excited about was this bad boy right here.
It's not escalatory, it's defensive. And it's easy to and we'd love to not have to have them use it, just stop the attacks.
President Zelenskyy, again, welcome. You mentioned earlier that you wanted to make this trip for a while now. Why now? And also,
I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous in Virginia today.
The message you are sending to President Putin is, given the fact that 24 hours ago you were on the ground in the front lines with artillery echoing behind you, and now you find yourself in the White House standing next to the president.
Thank you very much for your question. As to what is the message for Putin? I am standing here in the United States with President Biden on the same podium because I respect him as
because they're getting ready to pass a budget in Congress in the next couple of days.
a human being for his position. And for me,
as Mitch McConnell said, our number one priority is protecting Ukraine.
Biden, for example, if it's not serious, you said, what's going to happen after Patriots are installed? After that, we will send another signal to President Biden that we would like to get more Patriots.
We're working.
That is our life. We are in war. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. That is my appreciation.
So he's done a little bit of material tonight, but I've not been impressed. Remember, he was a stand-up comedian.
We had a Normandy meeting in 2019. I became the president of Ukraine, and at that time we were sending maximum messages to President Putin, telling him that there shouldn't be a full-scale invasion, to stop aggression, to renew our territorial integrity, to find diplomatic solution. God forbid we should not have a full-scale war. At that time, he said it won't happen. He was.
You implied I ain't got no jokes, Steelers.
I can send him after he actually.
You keep talking like that, and I'll piss in your eye hole.
Destroyed our life. Is destroying our life. He can even go further, somewhere where the Soviet Union stayed before this.
If you ain't got an eye hole yet, we can remedy that.
Those territories too. I believe that there is something mortal about his inadequate approach to the world.
Oh no, I better wash myself. That might be tiptoeing on terms of service.
Needs to be interested in getting attention from the world, because he is not a subject of civilized people.
Balls, you know what we do with balls around here.
He's kicking authority in the
trying
balls.
to save something of his culture and history of his country. So that's his problem now.
Yes, Putin is determined to reunite the Soviet Union, but also taking over Georgia and Ukraine, those two countries in specific. Pretty much gives him a monopoly on the world's oil supply that's not in Saudi Arabia or in the U.S.
Patriots, because, as you said, it might be unnecessary escalation. And now it is happening. Right now, today, it is happening. And now Ukraine desperately needs more capabilities, including long-range missiles attacks.
Truck nuts were banned in Florida?
But can we make
truck nuts were? I mean, I thought Florida was where truck nuts went to retire. Come on.
And liberate all territories rather soon.
I would say like 50% of the truck nuts sold in this country are sold in Florida.
His answer is yes.
I agree.
Let me be straightforward with you here. Look.
Okay, that was some good timing for him to laugh at Biden like that and then be like, I agree.
It's important to remember.
He is a funny guy. I see it now.
Before Russia invaded, we dedicated an enormous amount of security assistance to Ukraine. And
I don't know. I was talking about nuts.
Ukraine what they needed when they needed to defend themselves. And since the invasion, that has resulted in more than $20 billion in terms of security assistance. Just today, I approved another $1.8 billion in additional assistance to Ukraine for it to succeed on the battlefield. And we're focused on working with allies and partners to generate capability in 4 key areas. Air defense, as we know today, the Patriot is the best of that. Secondly is to, and we're looking to do more, we provided hundreds of advanced artillery systems and from dozens of countries. Thirdly, we've worked with partners to get Ukraine tanks and other armored vehicles. And fourthly, we've announced today another 200,000 rounds of additional ammunition. And you say, why don't we just give Ukraine everything there is to give? Well, for 2 reasons. One, there's an entire alliance that is critical to stay with Ukraine. And the idea that we would give Ukraine material that is fundamentally different than is already going there would have a prospect of breaking up NATO and breaking up the European Union and the rest of the world. We're going to give Ukraine what it needs. to be able to defend itself, to be able to succeed and succeed in the battlefield. And the other piece of this is, you may recall,
Biden is citing the Rolling Stones there and saying you can't always get what you want.
But I've spent several hundred hours face to face.
Mr. Zelenskyy, if you try
with our European
sometimes.
allies and the heads of state of those countries, and making the case as to why it was overwhelming in their interest that they continue to support Ukraine. They understand it fully, but they're not looking to go to war with Russia. They're not looking for a third world war. And I think they can all be avoided by making sure that Ukraine is able to succeed in the battlefield. So anyway, there's more to say, but I probably already said too much. Thank you. Well, thank you all.
I mean, that's your charm, Joe.
Much appreciate your time and attention. And as I said, Mr. President, you don't have to worry. We are staying with Ukraine as long as Ukraine is there. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. All the best.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain in your seats until the official delegations have departed. Thank you.
President Biden announcing more than $2 billion in defensive weapons and humanitarian aid to Ukraine as it faces a winter of war with Russia. Biden and
Oh, I don't know what you're talking about, Steelers. He totally talked, and also
both from the White House and from Ukraine.
that's not how you spell allowed.
Zelenskyy, we will stay with you as long as it
At
takes.
least not the version of allowed you're wanting to
Security
use.
reporter John Hudson, opinions columnist James Homan, also White House reporter Yasmin Abutaleb. James, let's start with you.
What up, James Human?
The tone of this, the relationship they're trying to build, but also any news that came out of it.
Yeah, I think that there was an effort to show friendliness, to show a united front. We saw a lighter moment there at the end where Zelenskyy was asked what more he wants, and he said more Patriot missiles, but then he laughed and said to Biden, I'm sorry, we're at war. And I think you saw Biden really trying to show not just Zelenskyy, but the American people, that this is a guy who is willing to die for his country, and we owe it to him as kids are starving and people are going without heat to do everything that the United States can to support Ukraine in this effort. So I think an effort to deepen the bond, to show that there aren't cracks.
I don't like that all the talk on all the major media outlets never really, couch the full story
in that respect.
I feel like I do a better job
that remain
I want to start with the last question asked by your
talking about the reason why it's in the U.S. strategic interest to back Ukraine.
So we can push Russia out of all of these areas. And Biden tried to work around that, but let's talk about the realities of what the United States and other international coalition members have to wrestle with.
Yeah, and there is a concern about escalation. And you heard that in the question from Phil Mattingly, which was, are you concerned that giving the Patriot missile systems is going to lead to Russia responding in some kind of tit-for-tat way?
And you
heard Biden say, we didn't talk about it with Zelenskyy, but two, it's a defensive system. We're firing at weapons that are being fired at Ukraine. And it does get at concern about the U.S. wanting to remain blameless for escalation. The U.S., think back to February, Zelenskyy was publicly calling, as he did during his last speech to Congress, delivered virtually, for a no-fly zone over Ukraine. Joe Biden at the time said that would literally lead to World War III. If the United States had planes flying over Ukraine, shooting at Russian planes that were flying over Ukraine, we're not going to do that. And there has been...
Oh, sorry, Sassy.
It
was awful boring. I felt like I needed to crack the jokey jokes.
The war as a combatant. One of the things I was struck by in Biden's riff at the top was emphasizing not just the military support.
I always warn against lionizing people.
Basically trying to keep the government afloat. If you think about it, Ukraine, which is a country the size of Texas, it's a country, 40 million people. They basically have had... Everything has sort of come to a standstill.
Several leaders who have come to power during moments,
has essentially been funding
crises like this that seem like they have the people on their side come to power during populist movements and then turn autocratic.
Military funding drying up, and more about.
I do want to point out that before the invasion by Russia,
it's a lot easier to get Republicans to
Zelenskyy was facing multiple allegations of corruption.
The kind of paying for generators to make sure that electricity is intact in the subway stations in Kyiv that have become bomb shelters. So I thought that there was a strategic effort by Biden to emphasize look, it's not just the military support we need to be giving, it's all these other things, and that is not going to change.
I think you got your numbers wrong there, Steelers. We're approaching 50 billion.
Major takeaways
not million.
from what we just heard from the two presidents.
Yeah, well, this is President Zelenskyy trying to solidify American support for the war effort going into a new year and in the middle of an extremely difficult winter, obviously. His country.
So I was correct when I called it. This is pretty much what Zelenskyy had to say.
Just get to the money part, all right? Just get the money part done. Give me money. Money me. Money now. Me a money needing a lot now. That was Charlie's line. Yeah.
That was Zelenskyy's line. I'm sorry. Later tonight, I guess I'm going to come on a little early and we're going to do this joint session of Congress at 7:30. What else have I got for you? Wild body cam footage from a shootout. Apparently the dude shot the cop before getting shot and killed by the cops. A death row inmate that was freed after spending 25 years behind bars shot dead attending a funeral in Philadelphia. Doctor was arrested for punching a cop during the insurrection. A Bay Area resident arrested with a assault rifle decked out in Trump colors and stickers and shit. Going to talk about Trump's taxes, which ain't no way he's a billionaire. You're not going to convince me that man's a billionaire looking at the tax returns that we now have access to. Ain't no way. He lost millions of dollars most years. That we know of. We only have 6 years. We only have access to 6 years. But he lost something like $200 million in those 6 years. Oh, god damn. We're going to talk about Russia possibly using Belarus to launch an attack. Possibly nuclear in nature. And we're going to give you the right's reaction to Volodymyr Zelenskyy. And as I said, I guess we're going to... The shootout was different from the funeral. Those were two different stories. Two different stories. A death row inmate that was released after 25 years in prison, killed at a funeral. Maybe it was a shootout. I don't know. He was indeed shot at a funeral. The shootout was between the cops. And we have body camera footage. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Tonight on the main show... Possibly we'll come on a little early because of the joint session of Congress. Oh, Vlad. Remember, he is going in front of them because they are getting ready to pass a budget. We'll have money for Ukraine. So that is the reason for Zelenskyy's trip to the U.S., If you are currently watching on Twitch, we're heading over to Woke Potato. Hang out with Woke Potato. Feel free to come back over and check us out probably around 7:30. If not, we'll be on at the normal troll time. Guess I can't tell you to go ahead and light one up and tip one back, though you can do that if you'd like. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. However, that doesn't limit your options very much at all.